All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending today's webinar on learning the label design basics with NiceLabel. So today we're going to walk through our NiceLabel Designer Pro software. This is the version 6 edition of NiceLabel. So it's our top-selling product regarding label design. So you can really design any type of label you want, from simple barcode labels, doing full sheets of labels, if you have an Avery stock. Otherwise, the most commonly used type of template is for thermal printing, whether it's a 4x6 template or maybe something for specific compliance of yours. So today we'll show you all the different label design aspects. We'll run through all of the different menus, show how to connect to a database, and show you some more of the advanced elements of the label design software package. And I have a recording of this session, so I'll make sure to send everybody a follow-up with the recording so you can pass it on to anybody else from your organization. And we have 3 different label design products. We have NiceLabel Designer Express, Designer Standard, and Designer Pro. When you start off with the Express, that's a very simple labeling. If you just want to quickly design a label, add text and a barcode, maybe connect to an Excel file, that's the product for you. But if you want to get into connecting to Access, you want to step up to the Standard. And then when you step up to the Pro, we give you more types of functions and advanced features. So you can combine multiple fields into a barcode or do VB scripting, do more layering on your label, so you can bring objects to the front or to the back of the others, and do more complex data calculations. So I'll touch on a nice overall picture of label design here, a lot of the most commonly used features. If you're ever wondering what type of software you have downloaded, you can always go to the Help menu and then click on About, and then that will show you I'm using NiceLabel Pro version 6.1, and then also give you your key number. So to get started, we have the File menu. Usually I click on New to set up a new template, and you can see it automatically opened up this label for me. And my default printer in Windows is my laser printer. So it pulled up an 8.5 by 11 full sheet. But for this demonstration, I'm going to be doing more designing for thermal printers. So if I close this label here, a couple things when you first install NiceLabel, some tricks are to go to the Tools menu, go down to User Interface, and click on Set Advanced Mode. If you do Basic Mode, which is sometimes the factory default, you can see some of the objects are larger here. You have disabled the more advanced features on the toolbar. So to bring everything out, I usually click on Set Advanced Mode. And that way it gets rid of the wizards that step you through the label design process, because a lot of the times you don't need to see some of those screens. So Advanced Mode really gets you down to what you need to see, and for more advanced users, it's quick access to everything. Also under the Tools menu, if you click on Options, this is where you can set up some of the default configurations here and change them to reflect different folders that you're storing files in. So under the General tab, you can click on Folders, and you can see where your labels are going to be stored, where your images, variables, or your databases. So you may want to make some tweaks here initially to maybe store things in different directories if you have different setups in your environment. And that's just going to make everything more organized and flowing better in the future. But now if I click on File to New, and you can get to the file label setup from the File menu, or you can simply double-click on the background of your label to open it up too. So from here, usually I select my printer that I want to print to. So I have a Zebra in this instance. And I usually have Use Custom Printer Settings saved in the label. Because if I set any different speed or darkness settings, I can save that in this template. So whenever I open it up, it's specific to that label. Otherwise, you can pull the settings directly from the driver, and some people do that in certain instances. But beyond that, usually I go right to the Dimensions tab, but I'll show you what we also have to offer. You can change the unit of measure here as well. On the Paper Layout tab, you can automatically set the label dimensions, which is what I always keep it at. The layout, you can change it from portrait to landscape, do rotations from here. You can also modify this in the future if you wish to. Or if you have a stock list, so if you have an Avery sheet, you can easily pull up that specific label with all the rows and labels already configured for you. So it's really simple to get started if you're doing address labeling. But for thermal printing, I'll just select none, because I'm going to go into the Dimensions tab and create my label size. So I'm just typing in the width and height, and you can see some of the margins got brought over from my laser printer. So when you're doing thermal printing, typically you want the margins to be 0, unless you have some specific stock that needs otherwise. You can modify the horizontal and vertical radius if you want to create curved corners or circular labels. But if you have, if you're trying to replicate like an Avery stock, you can also increase the amount of rows and columns. It's not going to let me with columns here because I'm just using this thermal printer, and the label size is too big. But typically for thermal printing, we're just going to do 1 row, 1 column. So it's going to be a roll of labels. And if you have a cutter, you can enable that as well and have different types of definitions on when to cut the label. Batch printing. If you want to have a header or a tail label, this is used a lot to separate batches of labels. So maybe you have a blank label or just put a big X through one, and that way you can separate batches. In background picture, you can use this, but it's not really used too much, only for color printing usually, or to give you a visual, kind of a ghost image to design around, so you know where to put text and where not to. And then also, if you're doing a sheet of labels, you can set a starting corner. I had somebody the other day who wanted to start in the top left corner and then print vertically. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can do all different types of processing orders here. So now that I have my printer selected, I have my dimensions correct, I can click OK. Sometimes you'll see a red line going through your label, and if that happens, I would double-click on your label, go to the Printer tab, and from here click on the Properties. And from here you can modify the size within the driver. Sometimes it catches here, so you just want to put in the correct width and height, and then sometimes the unprintable area can be dropped in here. So just make sure they're all 0, and then when you click OK, things should be fine. All right, so going through the different menus, on the left toolbar here, this left toolbar is what you're going to be using the majority of the time. You have your different text elements, your barcodes, your image, and different lines and rectangular objects. Or you can even do RFID. And on the right side of your screen, you have your alignments. So you get left align, center, right align. Then you have the horizontal and vertical spacing. So if you have several pieces of text in a row for an address, for example, then you can easily line those up perfectly without having to eyeball it and try to guess. So it just makes life easier. So I'll start by adding some text here. And on the left toolbar, you'll see there's a little drop-down arrow. And you can click on that to select a variety of different options for each element. Fixed text is one of the most common. It's text that's not changing. So if I click on that, you'll see the A next to my cursor, so I can left-click to drop it. Now it's going to allow me to freely type. Now I have a piece of fixed text. I can drag it from the corners to resize it, or I could do the same thing here from the toolbar. You can bold it, do whatever you want, just like any other normal text. So very, very similar to Microsoft Office. So our product's certified with Windows 7 and 8, so we try to give you that same look and feel. And the Nice Label Designer Pro has been ranked the #1 label designer for over 5 years in a row. So it was something that we didn't want to change the interface too much because people are already used to it, and we really didn't want to mess things up. So we try to keep it easy and do not want to change too much for the user experience. So for the other text features here, you can add a keyboard input, and that allows the print operator or user to basically type in data at print time. So right now I'm going to tell that user, what do they want to type in. So enter serial number, for example. And then you can type in the amount of characters, the max amount that this field will allow. And for standards, you want to make sure you keep it within the spec and maybe limit people so they're not typing in too much. You could click Finish right away. Otherwise, you can kind of step through the advanced features. The prefix and suffix, a lot of people don't know what this does, but it allows you to type in data before for the prefix or after for the suffix. So in between these two values would be the value that I'm typing in at print time. So if I'm typing in ABC at print time, I can have a 1 before or a 2 after. Or you could just type in some value like product. So it could be something just that hangs before that variable all the time instead of typing in a piece of fixed text before it. This automatically is lined up right in front of it, so you don't have to mess around with spacing or anything. Now if I click Finish and left click to drop, now this is my first prompt. So when I hit print, it's prompting me to enter a serial number. So it only allows me to enter in 10 characters, and then it shows up on your label. Okay, in other text features here, we have a counter. So you can set a starting value. So do 0001. Now knock this down to 4 characters. You can set this to prompt the user for a value before print. So when I hit print before, I entered in the serial number, but before that, it will allow me to enter in 001 or whatever starting value I want to set. Then it will continue on from there. You can change the value so it can step 2 at a time. So it would go 1, 3, 5. Or you can change the value every 2 labels. So it would replicate 2 in a row. Or you could do a rollover at 9,999. You have the prefix or suffix option for here too. So there is my counter. And also on the text here we have date and time fields. They're very easy to use. You have different types of formats depending on formatting in your standard or your compliance. You can also type in custom formatting, just typing in month, date, or year, just with the M, Y, or D. And they have Julian dates and a lot of different configurations. Or even set offsets. So you can set this up to be 1 year from today. So when I drop it, it'll be 2014. There's my date field. And it's the same process to add the time. You still have your selection here, depending on what type of time format. And then we have some RFID options. When I connect to a database later, you'll see all the database variables populate here on this variable list. So this is something that you can add that data as text in the future, or if I want to add that as a barcode, I can do the same thing. So say I want to put the counter into a barcode. I simply click and drop. It automatically defaults to a code 128 barcode. But I can simply double-click on it, click on the barcode tab, and I can modify this. Say I want to put it into a QR barcode. So it's very easy to change barcode types on the fly. So those are some of the text. They're line by line. I'll get into curved text and paragraphs of text here in a minute. But another alignment option here, if you highlight over all of your fields, you can use this button here to left align, or you could center them, right align, and we have some other top and vertical center, but I want to do the vertically spaced equally. And you can see they're perfectly aligned. So that's just the easy way to align up all your fields. Getting into curved text, you may have some circular labels, and you want to wrap some text around it. So with this feature, you can basically customize the shape of the circle. You can double-click on it to get into some more advanced properties. The layout tab, you can update manually the angle. You can change it from clockwise. So it's showing you curved text. It's not used that much, but it is helpful for some of those special labels. So I showed you text line by line, one line at a time. Now I'll show you a fixed text box. So if you have multiple lines of text, you can type them in this box here, hit OK, and then it basically allows you to have that all inside of one text box field. There are some other properties in here as well. In the Detailed tab, there's a Best Fit option. So you can set the minimum or the maximum font size for this text box. This is helpful because if you have very long characters, this is more helpful on variable fields, because if you have shorter or longer paragraphs of text, you can allow it to automatically calculate the size of this text depending on the amount of space allowed. So you can see if I increase the size of this box, text gets larger because my maximum font size was very large. But just make sure you don't have any errors when you're doing variable printing for text fields running too long for that allocated space. So that's a text box. We have a rich text field, which is the next option down. This is very similar, but it also allows you to basically make some more customizations. So you have more freedom to change the type of font for each line. You can have different size fonts as well for each field. You can bold others. So basically you have freedom to make changes, whereas the text box, you have to keep it all the same type of font, same size. You can also insert variables into here too by selecting them from here. You can see sometimes if there's not enough room inside that box, it turns red. And that means it doesn't have enough space, so you need to make some calculation changes. Or if I have another piece of text, if it hangs off the label, it's going to turn red, so it's not going to be printable. And it will say at the bottom, invalid, out of label. So you just need to move it back, and then it will now be printable. Also on different text objects here, you can see I'm using a Zebra printer. So if I want to speed up printing, I can use a Zebra font. If you go in the drop-down menu here, you'll see at the very bottom I have Zebra. So if I change it to Zebra Zero font, and if you don't see the printer data fonts there, you'll need to just click on this button here to show printer fonts. Now I have a little printer icon next to the text, and that means it is indeed a variable piece of text. And then you can get into other advanced properties here if you wish. These are typically for more advanced users. But now this field is indeed green, signifying it's a printer native font, so it's going to print faster. Some barcodes are also printer native, so you can always check if you click on Define. This one looks like it's printer native. It gives you the option to print as a graphic, which would not be native, and it's going to send down graphic data in that print code, so it'll print slower, and there'll be more data sent down to that printer for each label. Okay, so we went over different text objects. The next thing, I'll add some more barcodes. So we already created a fixed barcode. I'll create a different one here, though. And from here, you can basically make some changes. So if you have a code 128 barcode, click on Define, and from here, you could change it to a different barcode if you want, but you can also change the height and the width of it, see what mil spec your label is in. So this one's 20 mils right now. If your barcode has a check digit, you can modify it here. This one has a human readable listed below. But sometimes people want a larger font below this barcode, and a lot of times the software can't do it out of the box with this below barcode selection. So if we choose no interpretation and then go to the Details tab, you can also enable quiet zones. So that's going to give you some more room on the left and right side of this barcode to make sure no other values get in the way. So now here is my barcode that's created. And if you had a variable field, you could just use an existing variable. In this instance, I can just type in my text below, and I can have any size I want. So this gives you more flexibility for more readable information as opposed to a very tiny piece of text that you might not be able to see otherwise. And we have some different alignment tools here if you want to create different line objects to separate addresses from other fields. You can create different boxes as well if you have different types of standards. And your barcodes, you can also increase the size of it by dragging the corners or vertically. You can make a skinny barcode. So those are some of the simple line and object tools. We have an inverse object here. So if I want to convert this text here to white and have a black background, like a produce traceability standard has something similar to this. So it has a voice pick code that's inside. So this is just highlighting this field. So it's very simple, and you can move this around to whatever object you want. All right, and you see this RFID icon here. You can get into the tag settings, or you can get into the tag data. So you can change the type of tag you're using, if you want to use EPC encoding or not. You can type in different values here, or they could be variable. You're choosing them from maybe one of your database fields that you created. You have all your different encoding types. So really that's for more advanced RFID use, that you're actually encoding this label with some type of data. Okay, so if I go under the data menu, we'll now step into creating variables from a database. So it's a very, very easy process. A lot of people get a little scared when they get into connecting to databases. But as long as you know what your database looks like and what fields you want to grab, it's very easy. Clicking on the data menu, we'll click on Database Access. And from here, I'll use the wizard. I always use this if you're doing a CSV, an Excel, or an Access database. use the direct database option. For more advanced users, they can do the ODBC or Borland database. These are older, legacy databases. They have a little more manual configuration. But for all common databases here, use the direct option. And now, it's basically allowing me to browse for my database. And inside of NiceLabel, you can see my programs, EuroPlus, Designer Standard, samples. I have a couple different types of databases offered. I'll just do the Access database. It's the same process whether you do Excel or Access. Okay, now it shows me my tables available. This is a simple database. It just has one table. So now if I click on Next, as my field selection. So these are all the different pieces of data that I can add to my label. I can pick and choose what I want, or I can select them all in case I want to use one in the future. Now it's asking me how I want to print this data. And you can select what records you want to print. So I want to print all records, or I want to select what records I want to print at print time. So basically a checkbox for, product A, product B. So I'll do that so you can see the process. And then you can specify how the label quantity is defined. Print one label for each record, or one field in the database can contain the label quantity. So for each product, you could have a quantity next to each, and then NiceLabel will print that quantity for each automatically. Or you can enter in the quantity for each record. So I'll select record A, I'll enter in 3 labels, record B, 4 labels, and so on. Now here you can drop your text objects on your label immediately right after you click Finish, or you can choose to add them manually from these drop-downs. I'll show you what it looks like for this first option. Now I can click Close, and it dropped these 4 fields, so now I can move them wherever I want. So these are now variable fields. If I click on Print, I have my value for serial number, and now it's asking me to select my records to print. So here's my database view. And it's basically a PASTA database. So I'm going to click this record, this one, and this one, for example. So I'm going to want 2 of this label, just 1 of that, and 1 of this one. Or you can do different searching to search for any of these product IDs, your barcode, or your description. Now click Finish, and if I do a preview, you'll actually see this data changing. So I believe I did 2 of the first label. Now it's changing to 1, and then a different label. So you can kind of see how things are progressing here. And also my counter has changed to the 4th label. So it's really cool to do a preview and just make sure you did everything right and you didn't make mistakes. Sometimes if you have a long variable field, it might be stretching off your label after you get to a long record. So it's just something to help you, prevent wasted labels. Another helpful trick on these text fields, you'll see there's a little green circle on the upper left corner of this text. That means the text is going to grow from this corner out. And you just want to make sure, you don't have, this in a different area that might end up having your text go off the label to the left here. So if you double click on this text field, you can go into the different anchoring points. So you can anchor, center it, have it grow out from the middle, or have it basically lined up and anchored on the right side if you're lined up over here and stretching left. So just keep that in mind. You can also rotate your text too if you want to put an angle on it. So some helpful tricks there. Also, when you have your database fields here, sometimes it gets confused with other fixed text. Whenever you click on the object, you can see if it's fixed or if it's variable. Here's the EAN value. If you go to the View menu, from here you can get to different object properties. So you can see variable names. So now it gives you a little yellow field stating what that variable is. And some other helpful tools here, you can display a grid, so you can use this to align up your barcode with other fields on maybe the other side of your label. You can also enable guidelines, so you can stretch a line over and line everything up. It won't print, but it just gives you kind of a guidance for that object. Take off the grid here. And sometimes you might see question marks where your text is supposed to be. That's because you have the view set up for normal, like this. So it's showing you the maximum amount of characters available. So I have a very, very long variable field here. This one is only set up to 10 characters, so you only see 10 question marks. So if you see that, you can hit it back to data. And that will get you back to the real-time data view. All right, so say I have this pasta code. We'll turn off the object properties here so you can see. So I want to put this into a barcode. So if I click on this barcode drop-down, use existing variable, pasta code EAN. So now it's simply easy as dropping that barcode onto your label, and now it's connected to that variable. And I showed you before, how you can put larger text underneath. So if I go back into this barcode tab, click Define, disable the human readable, and then I have this other piece of text I can manually move. And now this text is also linked to this barcode since it's the same pasta code EAN value. And you can also see barcodes, they have this anchoring point as well, so it's going to grow out from this left side to the right. Okay, so if we want to get into some more advanced features here, I'll create some functions. Under the data menu, this is usually where you get into more advanced features. So if you click on functions and click on new, all right, I'll just type in a name, and then we have concatenate or subsets and other functions you can choose from if you want to do VB scripting and so on. Concatenate is fairly often used. So if you click on define or detailed, it's going to allow you to see all of your variables that you created. So I can choose my pasta code EAN or product ID, and it's going to combine both of these values together. It's going to create a new variable called concatenate, and you'll find that under the drop-down menu for the variables. So then you can drop it on your label as text or as a barcode. Say you want to split these two values up. You want to put a separator in there. You could put a hyphen to separate the information. So now if I click OK, my test function is created. So now if I want to add that as text, I can see concatenate. You can see the little function icon here. Now you can see I have this EAN value combined with this ID. You can do the same thing with the barcode. So if I delete this and remove it, and I can see this combined value inside of the barcode. And if we want to get into some more compliance barcodes, we have some listed here. So you can see, here's 2D barcodes, data bars, linear barcodes, and this one here, GS1-128, is a barcode a lot of people get scared about as well. So this barcode builder is going to step you through the process of creating a GS1 128 barcode. And it's going to allow you to combine all the different elements you want together. And it's going to add the identifiers automatically. So if you know the structure of your barcode, you can proceed on. So if you click Add, now it's going to give you all of these different identifiers here. So you want to find the value that you need. And here's the G10. A lot of times that is used. So do an automatic calculation of the check digit. And the data, we'll just keep it as fixed for now, but you could choose a variable if you wanted to pull a variable G10 from your database. So it's going to show you the amount of characters you can type in, which is 13. So if I hit Next, it now added this as the first element. So we have 01 as the application identifier, and then the following G10 information after that. So I'm going to basically grow the amount of data here. So I'll click Add again. Maybe 21, that's my serial number I need. Let's use a piece of fixed data. I won't create it too long here. All right, and maybe I have a customer part number. So now I have 3 elements here that are all put together. So now if I click Finish and OK, it now created this barcode for me. And I can just move the pieces of text and barcodes back on so they're now printable. So it's very easy to create a GS1 128 barcode. So it's very simple as long as you know the different elements that you need. One thing we didn't create so far was an image. We didn't drop one of those on. So you can go into the drop-down here, into Clip Art Gallery, or you can browse your PC. If you do the Clip Art Gallery, I'll show you what we have here in stock. Different arrows, care symbols. This is used for garment labeling, for retail tags. Some of their warnings. Another popular one, GHS. This is kind of a hot field right now because there's going to be a mandate in 2015 for this chemical labeling. So we'll do the skull and crossbones here. And you can just drop it onto your label. It's a pretty high-res file, so you can resize it and drop it wherever you want. So if you had another fixed image, you could also pull it from your computer. So you just browse for it, and it's going to give you the option, all the standard Windows images from JPEG, GIF files, PNG, even Adobe Photoshop, PSD files. So you can bring in some high-res images there. All right, here's a nice label image. And that one didn't turn out very well. Let me choose a different one. Do this JPEG. Okay, so now you have an image drop down. You can even create variable images if you want. So if you have a database and a column that is named image or picture, you can link that image name to a folder of your images on your computer. So there's a lot of things you can do there with images and color labeling. Going through some of the menu options here, let me just save my label. So you're saving your label as a .lbl file. That's our label file standard. You can see here there's a lot of different options on the file menu. And one option is to export to graphics. So you can export this label as an image. And that way you can email it to somebody from your organization who doesn't have nice label. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to open up your label file. So sometimes you can just email them this JPEG image and they can visually approve the label for production printing. So now I have a image of that label that I just created. So some other features here, you have the edit menu, which is all the standard undo, redo features, copy and paste. We went through a lot of this. You can do different zooming. The zoom, you can do a 2-label, or if you have a full sheet of labels, you can do 2-page, so it will blow up the whole entire 8.5 by 11 sheet. Objects, these are all the same objects you can see from this left toolbar here. Data, we pretty much went through most of this. Beyond, it gets a little more complicated, but you can click on your variables to see a full list of all the variables you do have. Arrange, this is bringing objects to the front or to the back. You could do the same thing if you right-click on any object. You can get into a lot of these arrange features too. So you could bring it to the front or to the back of another object, get into advanced anchoring like I talked about. You can align objects up relative to other objects below them. So if you have a variable field here, maybe this one that's highlighted, this has empty fields throughout the database. So you can have this field below it move up, depending on if there's no data. So you can do some custom features like that. And then you can even lock images or objects. So you see a lock next to it. I can't move it. If I go into the File menu and expand this out, looking for Properties. And from here, you can see some information about your label, your preview, maybe previous revisions that you've made to it, or the advanced. This is where you can lock down your label with a password. So you can type in the value there and lock it down so nobody else can make changes to it. So that's another helpful trick there. Tools menu, we went through a lot of this already. We have a log file though. This log file allows you to view previous print activity. So you can sort it for different periods of time, narrow down to that specific label, and variable information on there. So you can see, all the different pieces of data tied to each record. You can see the requested quantity, the status, if there was an error involved, what printer you printed to. You could reprint one of these labels if you want after the fact. Or you can even print a report of print activity. So this is enabled in the Options menu. So if you go Options, click on Log File. I have an Access database set up and set up in this directory. Or you could do a text file as well. But this is something you'll have to enable when you install NiceLabel. It won't be enabled automatically. All right, I'll save my label here. And I have the full NiceLabel PowerForms application installed. So if you have NiceLabel PowerForms, you get a couple different utilities as well. You have NiceForm, which is included. There's an Easy Forms that's included in the Pro Designer, so it allows you to basically convert your label into a print screen. So you'll see this design form here, this button. So if I click on it, it's going to convert my label in an instant to a print screen. So I can drag the print preview size to make it very large. You can add your different logo, put it on the top here. You have your serial number, which is my input field, my database view. You can even get into the database columns and change the width of them. So you can see all the different values. You could stretch this out if you want. You have your your printer drop down automatically added. You have your quantity, settings, and print button. So with the Nice Label Designer Pro, that's our best label designer we offer, and that's going to give you the Easy Form app, which is very similar to this. You just have the first couple options here. You can add frames around fields. You can add text as a header. Let's do Nice Label Demo. You can highlight over fields to move them around a little bit. It's not going to look too pretty, but just to give you a visual of what you can do. And, you could add a picture here, which would be something like your logo. And then if you hit Run, it's going to run this program just like a normal printing application. So it's really best to print from an application and not print from a label designer, where there's a lot of potential for errors to occur. So I'll type in my serial number. It automatically enters it in there as my value. I can pick and choose which specific record I want, or I could do a search off of maybe a product ID. So I search for this value, it automatically pulled it up for me. I have all my available printers that are installed to choose from. Say I want to quickly maybe modify my settings. Maybe this label needs to be a little bit darker for the heat setting. I can click on it, get right into this, make some last-minute changes, and then print. So it's a very cool printing application. So you get just a couple features with the Nice Label Pro, but if you buy the PowerForms package, which would be the next upgrade up, that will give you all these other additional features. So here at Nice Label Americas, we do a lot of projects with our clients to create custom print screens for their workflow. Maybe they have a couple scans they need to make in a row, so they scan each barcode. We can program it to automatically jump to the next field, so they don't have to click on the next field, then scan. So we can really make printing a little more efficient, as well as data entry. It's really ideal to have this on a touch screen, so you can basically be touching the screen, selecting maybe print buttons, or just having a little more better user interaction. So you can create some pretty slick applications, and even create a main menu screen that links to other additional forms. So you can create a multi-screen or multi-layer application. And also under the Tools menu, in the Label Designer, we give you nice data. You can create your own Access database. Nice MemMaster allows you to basically store printer fonts and graphics into your printer's memory. So you can speed things up a little bit with your printing if you're doing really, really fast printing, lots of labels a day. Nice Print. This is another option. It's similar to the Form app, but it's not as complex. So you basically can choose the label that you want, and then it gives you your keyboard inputs, your preview. So here's my test label. So this screen, you can't modify at all, but it's just a very simple print screen. And then with our more advanced products, we have the Enterprise Print Manager that gives you a visual of your entire printing network. Quick Print is another tool we have to offer. It basically gives you a view of all of your labels in a specific directory. This is probably going to take some time. I have a lot of different fields inside of this folder. Well, I only have 7 here, so it's okay. So you can basically visually see the label you want, click on it, and then access this label for printing. So it gives you this nice print screen where you can just type in values, and they're transferred on to various fields. Okay.